Where are we now, Bobby? Because this 10-point plan that presumptively is going to be the basis of negotiations is pretty extreme on the Iranian side, as one would expect. I mean, it gives them control over the Strait of Hormuz, it allows them to charge tolls, it calls for reparations effectively. It asks for a lot of different things. So where do we stand right now?
Well, only yesterday the White House was briefing reporters and saying that the 10 points that Iran had put forward were unacceptable, that they were maximalist, that was the term that was used. I think Axios was reporting that, and that it would not be considered. Today, Trump is saying that it's the basis of a conversation. Now, it's not unusual for two sides in a negotiation to start from maximalist positions and then find their way to something that both sides can agree on. But we don't yet have anywhere near enough information. We've heard that there's a 10-point plan. The White House has not released this 10-point plan. The Iranians have not released the 10-point plan. An Iranian news agency, which is usually the mouthpiece of the government, has released only the sketchiest idea of a 10-point plan, and that includes the points that you make, that they get to decide who goes through Hormuz. The United States has to leave. All American military personnel have to leave from the region. That they get to decide on their nuclear uranium enrichment program. These are things that surely, after all of what we've seen take place, after everything that the president has said over the last month and a half, none of these things should be acceptable at face value to the Trump administration. But now the president says, at this late hour, that it's a basis of a conversation.
Yeah, and I mean, and all the things that you're saying were true yesterday,
Yep.
throughout the entire day yesterday. So why move the goalpost tonight, just hours before his deadline?
Well, I agree with some of what was said there. We don't really know what's in the 10 points. We haven't seen it. We also don't know what conversations have been had with a lot of other countries. There's a lot of reporting tonight that maybe China was involved, that maybe other countries got engaged here in mediating this. So there's obviously a lot of players in the room having conversations that we're simply not privy to. So I think we're all probably going to be watching over the next 2 weeks to see how the negotiations turn out. What I'm most interested in is what happens to the nuclear program of Iran. To me, that was the biggest piece of why we were doing this. The president drew a red line. They will never get a nuclear weapon. That's why we were doing this, along with taking away their ability to export terror, the missile program, the aggressive Navy. But to me, that's the number one piece. When are we going to see the negotiating points around the development of nuclear weapons? And we'll find that out, I guess, in the coming days.
No mention of that. Trump, by the way, and we shouldn't gloss over this, he started the morning with the threat of ending Iran's civilization, and ended the day without any clarity on any of the things that Scott just pointed out, and especially the thing that presumptively we went into this war to get control over, which is the nuclear program.
Pretty insane jump, right? From destroying civilization to seemingly using their 10-point maximalist plan as a baseline, right? And those are the kind of, just to your point, I really want to understand exactly what's been agreed to behind the scenes here. And if tolling is what's been agreed to, allowing Iran to actually charge a toll for ships to pass through, that would be actually a step backward for our country and for global passage of 20% of the world's oil and gas. That's a huge problem. And you add to that, and I'd like to really understand where we are on the uranium side, and I think the nuclear piece is very, very important. Where are we on the terror program, what's been agreed to there, and of course, what's happened on the ballistic side, and kind of what progress have we made? And I think that's a very important thing to understand. Well, hopefully we'll hear from the president.
I don't think anything's been agreed to, by the way, other than...
So then why did the goalpost move? Why did he call off he set a red line, he called it off, and nothing has been agreed to?
Well, they've agreed to negotiate, and the one thing that he specifically mentioned was that Iran said they were going to open the strait. And this whole negotiation, this whole ceasefire is based on their willingness to do that. But they have a baseline for negotiations. So I guess there's going to be a 2-week period here where we find out if we can have a diplomatic solution.
A little agreement.
I think the agreement is to open it and then talk about the rest of it.
Well, the strait was not even an issue at the start of this war. The strait was open, and now that becomes... The closing of the strait was a result of this war, and now that becomes the key to renegotiating with the Iranians. How did that become the key issue? That was never the key issue before the war began. We've now showed the Iranians, and they in turn have showed the rest of the world, that they have the ability to put their hands on the neck of the global economy. And once that has been seen, it can't be unseen. Once that,
You don't think
insert
they knew
your
that
cliche
before?
here.
You don't think they realized
They had
that
never
it was-
done it in
But
all
you don't
these
think
years.
they knew it was sitting there?
And it's a big difference between knowing it and demonstrating it now. Everybody in the world knows it. Trillions of dollars of the global economy depend on it. It's not enough to say that it was always going to be this way. It was not going to be this way on the 27th of last month. It's become this way because of this war.
But to me, this is still secondary.
And just to be clear,
This is still secondary to the
this
nuclear issue, in my
two-week period in which there will be presumptively a stop to the bombing, Iran says that their military is going to control the Strait of Hormuz. So they are still going to use, to your point, the threat of force to allow whoever they want to come through that passage.
When was the last time we discussed the Iranians using military force to patrol the Strait of Hormuz? That was not on the table, to your point, before Donald Trump decided to do this. And of course, reporting is coming out about all of the myriad of reasons why he shouldn't have done this and how he was warned not to do this. And then there were those who, this is what happens when you don't have people who are experts, who are adults in the room making these decisions, unfortunately. This is what happens. They didn't anticipate this part. They went, wait a minute. The Strait of Hormuz controls all of this rite of passage for oil, for petrochemicals. Oh my gosh, our farmers are now freaking out because before they were suffering from tariffs and going bankrupt. Now it's planting season and they can't get their fertilizer. And then, oh my gosh, oil is going through the roof per barrel. And the American people were paying $2.50 a gallon. Now they're paying $4.15, sometimes $7, depending on where you live, since Donald Trump did this. We need to ask a question. How is this making America great again? If it was all about the nuclear program, which I agree with you, Scott, on, that was something that was very important. We haven't heard anything about that. If it was all about the ballistic missile program, we haven't heard anything about that in weeks. If this has all been about the Strait of Hormuz because Donald Trump has created chaos and instability and upset our allies and almost broke up NATO over all of this, and you can't undo the damage that he's already done. We cannot just gloss over the fact that the President of the United States threatened genocide against a civilization because he threw a temper tantrum this morning because he wasn't getting his own way. There should be consequences for that kind of flippant language. That's not something we should just gloss over.
We'll get to that in
Let's
the
not
next block.
really forget what Scott's point was, though, here. And I agree with you. When we're talking about messaging, you cannot possibly argue right now it has changed from day to day to day to day. But let's just one time in our history, in our recent history, let's look at the long game for once. This is a country right now, one of the most evil nation states that has been on the planet. It has been severely degraded with respect to its nuclear capability. It has been severely degraded with respect to its missile capability. Its army has been severely degraded. When they talk about trying to keep the Strait of Hormuz, that we're going to keep it closed with their military, what Navy? There is no Iranian
They're
Navy
not keeping it closed with their Navy. That's not what they're
Let's
using.
for once look at the long game here. We have made
but Chris,
that region. We've made this
But hold on,
place
Chris.
a safer
The thing
place.
that counters.
Yes.
Ask the Gulf, ask our Gulf
But Chris,
allies
the
if
thing
it's
that
safer.
counters
Yes, we
your
have.
point is that the Strait of Hormuz, right now, as we speak, is closed.
It is.
So if you're saying that all the things that we have done, they have no power to close the strait, then why is it closed?
We are talking about a very temporary situation right now. To think that this is going to continue forever, really, Abby? I mean, honestly, we have the strongest military in the entire world.
But let's
we can
actually
take that Strait of Hormuz.
But let's
anytime
actually
we want.
That wasn't the, wait a minute, that wasn't the
contemplate what you're
original,
saying.
I
it wasn't
agree.
the original
I
motion.
agree. But I'm trying to look at the
But
long
Chris,
game.
5
here.
weeks
if we're
into
looking at
this-
the long game,
Chris, you have to
Chris,
understand.
hold on.
This is being argued. It's heads I win, tails you lose. That's how this is argued.
How about you? Hold on
I
a
missed
second.
that-
Hold on a
I
second.
missed that memo,
Hold on a second. How about you guys actually deal with reality?
Yes.
5 weeks into
That's what we're
this.
asking
Hold
you
on.
to do.
No. Let me just ask you a quick question. 5 weeks into this war, Iran's military has been decimated. Nobody disagrees with that.
True.
Okay, its navy decimated. All of that. 5 weeks into this war. First question: why is the Strait of Hormuz closed?
It's closed because they're choosing to harass people going through.
Okay.
With what Navy? I thought they
Okay.
It's not
thought
the
it was
Navy. It's
definitely-
from the, it's
So,
from the
all
land.
right.
And-
There's
and-
the
and-
point
and-
then.
and-
The
it's a
Navy being
temporary- it's a
decimated doesn't
temporary
It's
matter.
closed. It's closed. You agree, and that Iran is keeping it closed.
And apparently
why
is
the
opening
United
pending this
the United
ceasefire.
States has threatened to use force to reopen it. We have not. Why have we not done it?
Well, the president asked international coalition to come in and deal with this, and 40 countries met about it last week at the direction of Great Britain.
He's also said we don't need them. He said we could do it ourselves. Why haven't we done it?
He also asked an international coalition to show up and deal with it.
You're not answering my question. Why haven't we done it?
Because he wants other countries to take some responsibility for it.
Literally
Okay.
48 hours
So,
ago, he said he didn't care about the Straits.
Long term, short term, however you look at it, Iran has successfully, from a point of profound weakness, been able to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed. And the reason that we are in this moment where the president is negotiating on their 10-point plan is because it is so important to him that that strait be reopened. And to Bobby's point, they have demonstrated to the world that they have economic leverage over the rest of the world.
That's right.
And so what does the United States do about that? That's the question that we are facing
One thing
right now.